Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Wednesday morning. Well, that was definitive from Denver. Man, they were down 0-2 to Minnesota. Lost twice at home. Minnesota playing with phenomenal energy in Game 2. And they have not been able to win again. And now Denver's up 3-2. They got all the momentum, and they're ready to close them out. The Joker, man, you're the MVP. You're the man. You need to come through. So 40 points, 13 assists, 7 rebounds, no turnovers. While going against the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, who is working as hard as he could and really just not having much impact at all. 40 points on 15 of 22 shooting for the Joker. They're like video game numbers, man. It's time to go through the social media archives and find everybody with their bad takes exposed on the Joker. He's not that good. Man, he just put him on his back. And Jamal Murray, 16 points, 4 assists, 7 of 14 shooting. Didn't even take a three-pointer. I mean, this wasn't even Batman and Robin. This is just Superman putting on the cape and just flying everybody to safety, flying them all to a Game 5 win. That pass he threw, for all the moves and the shake and bake, and looked a little like Akeem Olajuwon, pivoting one way, pivoting another. You just getting dizzy watching this guy. But for all those buckets and for that incredible three with Gobert jumping and almost in his lap, and he launches a three over him and hits it, unbelievable. The most impressive play, though, might have been him grabbing that rebound and throwing that ball 80 or 85 feet on a dime and hitting Murray for a layup. That was spectacular. So maybe Minnesota will come up with something. I don't know what. Mike Conley, a.k.a. Mike Conley, was out with some type of Achilles soreness, so that doesn't help, but I don't know what difference he could have made. I mean, Denver won by 15. And Joker, I always felt like he had another gear. You know, if that had really been tight, he'd have just turned it up one more level. That was just phenomenal. The other game, Brunson was pretty awesome himself, 44 points. So the Knicks are up 3-2 on the Pacers. And Indiana's road woes continue. You know, they're undefeated at home, but they've only got one road win. And now they're going to have to win at home again, and they're going to have to turn around and get a road win. Their backs are up against the wall. And I don't think either one of these teams is going to beat the Boston Celtics. And, we'll see, I assume. But and I do assume because the Celtics aren't there yet. They've got I think we all assume they will be. They're up 3-1. They've got Cleveland at home tonight. This seems like the perfect chance for them to put that thing away. Also, Mavericks and Thunder, Game 5 tonight in Oklahoma City. I feel like Oklahoma City is going to win that game. We'll see. All right, we'll take a break. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. A reminder, we're brought to you in part by America First Credit Union. Get the official debit cards of the Utah Jazz, University of Utah Sports, Real Salt Lake, and more exclusively at America First Credit Union. Coming up next, Brian Taylor is talking PGA Championship, and Brian Howell is talking CU Buffs. The Spring Football Tour takes us to Colorado and Dion. That's coming up later this hour. Stay with us, Brian Taylor, on the PGA Championship next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Brian Taylor, Real Golf Radio co-host, ready to talk PGA Championship. Brian, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are we?
Good. The PGA Championship is rolling into Valhalla. Is this one of the better PGA courses? Is it kind of the middle? How does this course stack up? Legendary tracks.
Well, Tiger made it legendary, I think, with this 2000 win over Bob May. That's what first comes to mind. Obviously, 2008, the Ryder Cup, Paul Azinger with the pod system finally got the U.S. a dub, much-needed win in that series when the Europeans were dominating. So there's been some good ones. Go back to 1996 PGA. Kenny Perry, a local favorite there, local Kentuckian. He's in the booth. Looks like he's going to win. Mark Brooks comes down the stretch. And while Kenny's in the broadcast booth watching and commentating, Mark catches him. Then they run right down to a playoff where Kenny probably should have been out hitting some balls and warming up, and ends up losing on the first sudden death playoff hole. So Kenny's been a good friend of the show over the years, and I know that one's a tough one to swallow. So those are some of the things that come to mind. And then Rory McIlroy beating Phil Mickelson by a shot back in 2014. So there's been some good ones here. It's, to me, and we've been out on this golf course, it's got some interesting holes. It's not, in my mind, of the places we've gone over the last 25 years, one of the most memorable as far as golf courses is concerned, but it's a big boy park, if you will, and I expect big hitter this week.
At majors, should par fives be reachable with a driver and a lob wedge?
I mean, ideally not, right? Ideally not. They're supposed to test these guys, and but you know what? I think there's some reasons why they're starting to roll the ball back. We were at Pinehurst for the U.S. Open a couple weeks ago, and I'm just little old me. I'm 50 years old. I don't hit it anywhere, and I hit driver 6-iron into a par 5. So what these guys are going to be able to do with that kind of stuff. So this is going to be different this week, though. You're going to have, they've got rain right now. They just shut the practice round down. A lot of flurry of activity yesterday, knowing this weather was coming. So probably not a whole lot of practice the rest of the day, with a 1/2 to 3/4 inch rain expected. But they've got this new zoysia grass on the fairways. It's supposed to react better than the bent grass to water and drainage and all that kind of stuff. That said, it's going to make it play slower. It's going to play longer. So I don't know that you're going to necessarily see that kind of thing going in. Where Pinehurst, for the U.S. Open in a month, they're looking to get that thing firm and fast balls rolling. And if you drive the ball well, you can move it up there quite a bit and have a shorter shot in. And they're USGA banking on your short game challenge once you get near and around the green. So a little bit of a different look this week, kind of an older Max Homa, just in his interview, called it an old school USGA or U.S. Open setup with the long rough and narrower fairways, and you got to hit driver long and straight kind of thing to score. But then doesn't necessarily test your skills. You can kind of get hot with the putter around here. So it's interesting to hear the different strategies of where the PGA is going and what the USGA going into more of a firm, fast, kind of approach.
Is the rough going to protect the course, or is the winning score going to be double digits under par?
I think they'll get to double digits, but yeah, they're saying 3 inches right now, and with this rain coming in, they expect it to be 4 inches, by the end of the tournament. So there will be some spots where, the ball will sit down in the rough, and they'll have a trouble. There'll be some areas where guys will have to pitch it back out, but today guys are so strong. The balls don't spin as much. The grooves on the clubs are so good that you'll see guys hitting good shots out of the rough. But I do think you're going to see, I think Tiger won at 18 under in 2000. And I think Rory was, I'm forgetting, but I want to say he was in the 14 under range. So I expect double digits this week on this golf course.
Is this the third or second year that they've been moving up? They moved it up to this time of year, and how has it been received?
Yeah, it's the fourth year actually that they've gone to May, and they, I think most of the players like it. It's a good cadence. I can tell you'd rather be in Louisville in May than in August, right? With the humidity and the heat and that kind of thing. So, the big issue was like last year. They were up in Oak Hill, in the Northeast, and, you could have snow, you can have frost, you can have some cold weather, and it worked out last year. I think, being in Louisville, it's a perfect time of year other than these spring thunderstorms are going to deal with this week. But I think from a golf cadence, it feels better than coming back across the pond and slipping in a WGC and then trying to slam the PGA and then roll right into the FedEx Cup playoffs right as football's kicking off. And again, look, they're not dumb. In the sports world, golf is a small piece of the pie. And when you start creeping in, everyone jonesing all year for football, and it starts to get, close, and TVs are turning over to practice, and preseason stuff versus watching major championships. So I thought it was a smart move from a scheduling standpoint, put it into May. Now you got players in March, Masters in April, PGA in May, U.S. Open in June, and the Open Championship in July. Get your playoffs out of the way in August, and then drop a September Ryder Cup or President's Cup in there. To me, it just feels like there's a definition to it and a good cadence for the players.
We're talking PGA Championship with Brian Taylor, Real Golf Radio co-host. Scottie Scheffler was dominating, then he stepped away from the tour, birth of a child. And do you think the focus has slipped? Has he been out there making putts, chipping golf balls, or he's distracted? Can he go out there, wave a magic wand, go 20 under and win this thing? Or should Bob not use the first pick in the draft on him again?
I think Scottie Scheffler is an absolute runaway favorite, even the fact that he's been off for 3 weeks. Although you do have to go back to 2017 at the Open. Jordan Spieth, the last player, 3 weeks off to win a major. Tiger did it a couple of times. I think once he was 8 weeks off going into the 2008 U.S. Open when he had that leg issue and things like that. So it's not unprecedented for a player to go 3 weeks off and win a major. I mean, Scottie's run this year is 2000 Tiger-like to this point in time. I mean, his last 5 starts have been 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. I mean, including a Players and a Masters and an Arnold Palmer. And, the guy is on some kind of heater. He also added a 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 10th in there just for good measure. So I have a hard time, thinking that Scottie isn't the absolute favorite. In his last 7 major starts in the U.S., he has 2 wins, 2 seconds, a 3rd, and a 10th. And then he had a miscut at Southern Hills at the 22 PGA, which was a bit of an anomaly based on how things have been going. So I love Scottie Scheffler again this week. He seems pretty settled. I listened to his interview as he came on the golf course yesterday afternoon, got 9 holes in, and he just said he's actually been able to practice quite a bit. The baby took a little longer to get there, so he's still a professional. He still has a job to do, and tries to spend as much time with his little guy at home that he can, and with his wife obviously. But he's ready to go. He understands he has a job to do. He looks at it, and it's interesting. Scottie looks at it as a calling. He said that at the Masters, and he said it again yesterday. That he has a calling to go out here and do what he does, and so he just seems like he has such a peace around it, a humility around what he's doing right now, that it doesn't feel like any of this has really gotten to his head. It's just what he does, and he feels really confident and calm right now. So I think he's definitely the guy to beat this week. I'd pick him.
How's Meredith doing? She all right?
C says she's doing great. So that's all the conversation around that. And by the way, that is very gentlemanly for you to ask. There was a time when your question started with, "Have you seen Amy Mickelson?" So that's very gentlemanly for you to ask there.
Oh, brother.
I'm not wrong, right? DJ, back me up on this one. It was the first question every time I'd get from you. So have you seen Amy?
Well, have you?
No, I haven't seen Phil or Amy for quite some time.
How about Elin?
Here we go.
Sorry, you know, my fault. Did I tell you this? That Elin has had multiple kids and in a relationship with a guy who was on the BYU basketball team?
No.
Look it up. It's true. Jordan Cameron? It's Jordan Cameron, right? Not Cameron Jordan. The other guy? Yeah.
I don't know. It's your story.
It's his story. Yeah, he went to BYU. You remember the gal at USC basketball who had the kid with Matt Leinart and then with Blake Griffin?
Okay.
That's his sister. Yeah. And he went to BYU to play basketball, redshirted, so he never got on the floor, and then decided he wanted to go football, went to junior college, then went to USC, played in the NFL for a number of years, particularly with Cleveland. I might have been more, but Cleveland's where he made his mark. But yeah, there's a BYU connection. He's the father of Elin's children, not fathered by Tiger. You might want to search that out, Brian. There's a story there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I guess my interest in Elin's children probably ended with Tiger, I suppose. But good for her. Hope that goes.
How about your interest in Charlie, though? I mean, is there going to be a Woods who sets the major record, but it's going to be Charlie, not Tiger?
I don't know. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there. But
have you seen him?
I've seen him. He's got a heck of a swing. He seems to have that Tiger bravado. You know this, though, right? I mean, it's a lot more difficult to come up and do something that your dad was the best in the world.
It really is, and that's what I was leading
to
with that question, because most of the time these golfers, high-level golfers, we know them all through the years, their kids are involved in golf. And Jack Nicklaus's kids, right? Johnny Miller's kids. And they have all these advantages with a PGA Touring pro who's really good. And they're really good, but they're not good enough at that level. And to me, it really gives you a level of appreciation just how good these guys actually are.
Well, aren't we looking at the same thing in basketball? I mean, did I not just see that Bronny measured 6'1" when he's been listed as 6'4" throughout his college career, right? And high school and college career.
Yeah, I think they do that bare feet versus with shoes, but shoes shouldn't give you 3 or 4 inches. So I get your point.
He's out there in platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unrealistic that Bronny's going to, do what LeBron did, right?
Right.
So.
I mean, that's at the high level, but it does seem like we see a lot more Suns in the NBA make it than we do Suns at the PGA level. It's so dang hard.
That would be an interesting study. I'd have to look at it, yeah.
Well, I mean, I can name Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Jalen Brunson off the top of my head.
All the Berries.
Yeah.
Rick Barry, they had multiple kids
3,
make
didn't
it. I think it was 3 who made it.
Yeah.
2 at a pretty high level.
Yeah.
None as high level as him, maybe. But,
right.
But nonetheless.
Yeah.
I mean, combined, they must have had 20 years.
Rick
kids.
and Brent
maybe
and
2
John.
of them did, yeah.
Yeah.
So are you saying that genetics translated into basketball or maybe other sports more so than golf?
I just think it's so stinking freaking hard to do what these guys do.
I think, and we can say the hardest thing in sports to do is to hit a baseball, right? Hit a ball that's moving, coming in over 90 miles an hour. Good luck with that, right? A fraction of an inch from a home run to a foul ball. But making a pressure putt from 12 feet, that's an awfully fine line. And you just have to miss a couple of them, and suddenly you're not even on camera. It's like you're not even in the tournament. Hey, what did that guy do?
That's true.
I mean, it is such a fine line.
Or how about John Rahm? And no one's talking about John Rahm. He signs one contract, goes over to live, and no one's talking about him. I mean, he's not that far removed from being the Masters champion a year ago, right? And there's zero talk of John Rahm this week.
Well, how many live guys do you buy? I mean, the whole argument about there isn't the pressure and they aren't tournament ready. I mean, you can't say it can't happen because it has, but given the talent of some of the guys who've gone over there and the age of some of the guys who've gone over there, don't we expect a little better out of them? I think the argument they're not getting tested, it carries some weight. It's not impossible to win from that tour, but it's definitely puts them at a disadvantage. I think we have enough of a sample size to say that now.
By the way, I would probably put in my favorites, I've got Scheffler, as I just mentioned, but I got Rory and Brooks. All 3 of those guys are coming off of wins on their respective tours and their last starts and so forth. But Brooks big game Brooks might be back. Although I will say last year he shot a final round 75 to finish second at the Masters and then came on to win the PGA and was talking about how upset he was. This year he shot a final round 75 at the Masters, but he was never in contention. So I'm not sure, if there's a direct correlation to that other than he said there's a lot of people that on his team that count on him to do certain things and that he didn't do that at Augusta. And so he was going to remedy that. Well, he did go on to win Live, and now here he is with a chance to kind of redeem himself. And, if he's got that chip, big game Brooks tends to come out. So he's won back-to-back PGAs before. Wouldn't put it past him to do it again this week, especially with it being a big golf course. Obviously, Brooks drives the golf ball very well and very long. So I think Brooks and Rory both. I mean, with the rain that's happening, the last time in 2014 it was soaking wet. Rory won. Most of his majors, it's been wet, and when Rory's won. So you got to you got to figure he's kind of licking his chops as well. So those are some of the guys. Because I know you're going to throw out the draft. Who you got tomorrow with Bob? By the way, who you guys going with?
Well, we can't say because then
I'll contemplate it tonight and come up with a winner.
You will designate the winner tonight.
Here's my sleeper for you, Tommy Fleetwood.
Tommy Fleetwood? All right. I mean, he's a name guy, but I guess as far as winning a PGA, I can see where you're going.
Why are you?
He's coming off a T3 at Augusta. He's got a pretty impressive major resume for not having won one of these things.
Sure.
3rd, 10th, and 5th in his last 3. And I think PGA and Southern Hills 2 years ago, where he tied for 5th, are kind of similar setups. So I don't know. He's such a good ball striker, and it just feels like he's a guy that, can kind of fly under the radar, but is such a good ball striker. I just think he's going to win one of these at some point in time.
If he does win, he will have the distinction of having the longest hair for a winner.
Maybe. That could be.
Oh, come on. I mean, we're
trying to think back in the 80s and 90s, though.
John Daly had
John Daly had some good flow.
Who had the pony? Someone had a ponytail, didn't they? Didn't someone?
Jimenez?
How long was his hair? It was in the ponytail. I don't know.
Yeah, man bun.
The man bun hid the true length. He didn't have the free flowing locks.
Okay. All right.
By the way, we have 2 locals. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, to PK's point, that'd still be top 3 from
for sure.
Magnificent.
Tony and whom?
Tony and Zach. Zach Blair also playing this week. Second PGA championship.
ZB.
Played in 2016 at Baltusrol. He missed the cut, but he's coming off a T4 at Zurich with Patrick Fishburne. Missed the cut last week, his last event 2 weeks ago at Byron Nelson. So Zach and Patrick had a huge opportunity at Zurich. I mean, they were right there. That was pretty heartbreaking. So we'll see what he does this week, but it's cool that he's in the field. And obviously Tony's playing in his 31st major championship, which is pretty remarkable. So 10 top 10s in majors.
What does he need for the W to break through?
Ironically, I think he needs to drive it better this week. At the Masters, he didn't drive it all that particular well. His ball striking was a little off. Wasn't sharp into the greens. His putter wasn't that terrible, to be honest with you. Most of the time, he gets a rap for a bad putter, and I think he's actually been putting better as of late. But the ball striking, the tee to green hasn't been on par with where Tony's been through most of his career. And, a lot of times he's ball striking it to death, getting himself up there, and then, just not able to capitalize with the putter. And it feels like maybe there's been some emphasis on that, and some of the other games slipped a little bit. But, Open Tee has a good week, but he's got the length, and he's plenty long for this golf course. If he can drive it well and put himself in position, I think he can make putts on this golf course. So we'll see.
Well, Brian, we will take all of this into consideration. We will do the draft, and then we will figure it out. And we'll let you know.
My maybes include a couple of Cams, Davis and Young, just so you know.
Okay, there it is.
Just take a look at those, PK. See what you think. I'm trying to help you out here, buddy. I know you haven't won in a while. So
I haven't won in a while. I had won 2 Masters in a row before I let Bob take Scheffler with the obvious choice. Why didn't he take Tiger back a few years back, too, while he was at it, and claim victory as if it's this astounding accomplishment? Get out of here.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
See you, boys.
DJ and PK, proudly presented by Murdoch Hyundai, Utah's #1 Hyundai dealer for 18 years in a row. Brian Howell is talking CU football. The spring football tour continues next right here on The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Brian Howell, Colorado Buffaloes beat writer for Buff Zone and the Boulder Daily Camera. As our spring football tour continues, Brian, good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good. Well, you're curious. Year 2 of Deion Sanders. Coming off 4-8, they need to find 2 more wins, and they're going to a league that doesn't look as good. I mean, he jumped into the deep end of the pool with the Pac-12 having just a great year in his first year, so maybe his timing wasn't great. Maybe the timing is better now. Nationally, that story cooled off big time as they lost 6 in a row to end the season. Did that cool things off locally, or is Colorado still see you a big deal with Deion?
Yeah, I think it cooled things off a little bit, but there's certainly still a big deal. And you look at they just announced this morning the season opener against North Dakota State is going to be an ESPN game, and yesterday they announced that week 2 is going to be on NBC at Nebraska. So there's still a big deal, and certainly a big draw TV wise coming out of the gates. And so I think I think what last year did was maybe temper some expectations a little bit from a lot of people.
You look at where they need improvement, and it's across the board when you don't win that many games. Obviously, that's for any team at any point. I want to start with the defense. You know, they allowed almost 35 points a game. The conference statistics, they were at the bottom, 276 yards passing, 176 rushing. They get a new defensive coordinator. You look at them, particularly up front. It looks like they're going to go, if you look at their depth chart, 3 of the 4 down linemen transfers, linebacker, couple of transfers. DBs, they might have the most returning amount of players there, and obviously his son is back there. So with Livingston being the new coordinator, how much difference or how much better can the defense be from last year to this year?
Yeah, they can be worse because we saw them in 2022, but it can't be a ton worse than what they were last year. But I think they're going to be better because they're better up front, and at least on paper. You know, they've got a lot of transfers, like you mentioned, and they really needed to bolster that front, and I think they're much better up there. And, their secondary was pretty good last year, and they returned a lot of those guys. And they also brought in a couple of cornerback transfers that they really liked that played really well this spring. And so I think they're going to be better. I don't think they're going to be one of the top-end defenses in the Big 12, but I'm not sure they need to be with this offense. If they can just hold teams to, 28 points a game, I think they'll be in a lot more football games and winning a lot more football games.
In your mind, bigger problem, D-line or O-line? And in your mind, which one have they done a better job of fixing in the offseason?
You can almost flip a coin. I mean, neither one of them was very good, but the offensive line was probably the bigger problem. But, yeah, they've certainly upgraded that. And at least, again, on paper, it's 10 transfers that they've brought in on the offensive line. And they also signed Jordan Seaton, who's the number 1 offensive line recruit in the country in the 2024 class. And so they've certainly tried to upgrade that spot. They think it's a lot better based on how they played in the spring. And it has to be because Shedeur was the most sacked quarterback in the country last year. And as long as they give him time, he can operate.
You look at running back, and they've had multiple guys leave the program and trying to figure out who's going to be the guy. Is it going to be the Hayden kid, the transfer from Ohio State?
I think so, but you also bring in Rashad Amos, who ran for 1,000 yards at Miami of Ohio last year. And so I think those are probably the top 2. But then, they've got a couple of true freshmen they really like that are coming in here. And so, but I think those 2 veteran guys, Hayden and Amos, are probably the top 2.
They hit the transfer portal to bolster wide receiver, which I don't really think was the problem. What do you think of the strategy of going out and getting one of the leading, if not the best, wide receiver out of the championship subdivision? They bringing in Wester, LeJounte Wester, 5'11", so I guess maybe that's why he gets passed over originally. But wow, career high 108 passes caught, second in the FBS. So.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He had a great spring, and they also went and got Will Shepard, who was he's been the leading receiver at Vanderbilt the last 2 years, and so I think they upgraded that spot as well. I mean, they did lose Xavier Weaver, who was their top receiver, but they've got obviously a lot of good guys returning. But you go get the number 2 guy in the country in receptions, who was also an All-American punt returner. I think that's going to help quite a bit.
They talk about how they're the number 1 ranked transfer class. And I'm wondering, that's good. If you're going to go with transfers, you want to have some really good transfers. But is sort of a double-edged sword, because if you're going in that direction, that is acknowledging that you need a massive talent upgrade. And so I wonder is it enough to be able to have them contend in the Big 12?
I'm not sure. I would not put them as a top contender in the Big 12. I think maybe if things fall right, maybe they can get to that point. I don't see them as a top contender. I think they're a 6 to 8 win team, and I would imagine you've got to win 10 to contend in the Big 12. But I think they can maybe get there. I just don't see it on paper right now.
What is the number 1 advantage they're going to have when they play somebody from the top third of the league? Or Will they not have an advantage when they play the top third of the league?
Well, I think they've got the best quarterback in the conference. And I think that anytime you've got the best quarterback, you've got an advantage. And I think that Shedeur gives them an opportunity to win every single game. And that's why maybe they could contend because you have him. But I think anytime that you have the advantage at that spot, you've got a shot.
How many times do you think that they can continue to go in the transfer portal and start to basically create a new team every year? Because I'm hearing that, at least in terms of numbers, there's not at least a lot of emphasis on high school recruiting.
Yeah, there's not, and Coach Prime has been upfront with that, saying that he's fine with some high school kids, but he wants kids that can come in and produce now. And, the system is set up for this. I mean, it's set up for kids to transfer all the time now. And so I think they're going to continue to be that because, they've got 27 guys on the roster right now that are in their final year of eligibility, and that includes the quarterbacks. And so, and that doesn't include Travis Hunter, who's probably not going to come back because he'll be a top pick next year. So you're going to lose close to 30 guys just through graduation. And so you have to replace that with the transfer portal. Otherwise, they're not going to be any good next year. And so I think we'll continue to see it that way as long as Coach Prime is here.
Did he miss with the last group, or did everyone come in with all those transfers and say, oh, I'm going to be the guy? Inevitably, everybody can't be the guy. I mean, 33 players transferring out seems like a story, but there seem to be a lot of potential explanations for why 33 players might leave. But that does seem like a big number. Yeah,
he missed on some, but I think that when you look at that 2022 roster, they were much better last year than they were the year before. And so he hit on quite a few, but missed on quite a few. And I think that by the law of averages, that's probably going to happen. And the ones that they missed on, they cycled through again. They said, all right, we need to replace you. We got to get better. And, I think they knew that was going to happen. Like they emphasized the edges last year. They emphasized receiver and corner and, DB and things like that. And so they didn't emphasize the trenches as much. And that was a big emphasis this offseason was building that inside. And so I do think they missed on some last year. They're going to miss on some this year as well. But as long as they hit on enough, I think they'll be okay.
I saw where Dion said that Travis Hunter, as far as going both ways, it'll be up to him in terms of how many plays he does play. What do you think that means?
I think it means just that. I think Travis is legitimately going to play as many snaps as he wants to play.
Right, but what would be the percentages, though? I mean, do you think? You got any numbers compared to what he did last year?
I think it'll probably be similar to last year, just because they continue to tell us he just doesn't like to come off the field, and he doesn't get tired. The Robert Livingston, the defensive coordinator, told us a story this spring where Travis was on offense the first half of practice, and he comes over to defense, and Livingston says, all right, do you need a break? And Hunter just kind of looks at him like, are you kidding me? And Livingston says, okay, fine, go cover this guy. And said he was fine the rest of practice and did great. So that's just kind of Travis Hunter. They give him his rest during the week, and he may not practice much until Thursday, but he's going to be ready at game time, and they believe he can play 100-plus snaps every week.
Looking at the schedule, is there a thought that Colorado had better start fast because the last month looks difficult with Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State? I mean, three of those teams, I don't know about Tech, but three of those teams have definitely been mentioned as potential, championship game participants. Yeah,
for sure. And that first part of the schedule, they open with obviously North Dakota State, which has been tough on teams in recent years. I'm not sure how good they are this year because they've lost a lot, including their head coach. But I think the next five are all teams that were only one was in a bowl game, and that was UCF that finished 6-7. So it's North Dakota State, and then it's like five straight teams that had losing records last year. And so the opportunity is there for a fast start, and I do think that's key. If they don't have a winning record through that stretch, then I think it's going to be a non-bowl season for them. But if you've got a winning record, or you're 4-2, 5-1, something like that, I think you can set up for a really good second half of the year as well.
Certainly, he had a legitimate reason for not attending last year, but do you think Coach Sanders will attend the Big 12 conference media days this year in Vegas?
Well, you never know. He does his own thing. I think so. There's never been any indication he wouldn't be. I think that he probably will be. His son's going to be there. Travis will be there. So I think he probably would be.
The Colorado State game, that's in Fort Collins for only the second time in a quarter of a century. The Buffs are actually going up there. Is that going to become a trend, or is that a one-shot deal?
Yeah, actually, it's the first time in almost 30 years. The last time they were up in Fort Collins was '96. So it's been a long time. It hasn't been on campus much because they played at the Broncos Stadium for most of the time since then. But, it's not every year that they're on campus. I don't remember what the deal is, but they don't play them for several years after this year. They've got a contract that's kind of sporadic over the years in the future. So I'm not sure exactly when they play them again, but I think it's nice that it's on campus. Last year was the first time on campus in a really long time, and so it made it a pretty cool atmosphere.
Well, everyone will be keeping their eye on Deion if for no other reason than when there aren't many good matchups in September, the networks are going to default to Deion and his personality. So we'll see how the Buffs do. Thanks for joining us, Brian. We appreciate it.
You bet. Anytime, guys.
Brian Howell, Colorado Buffs beat writer for Buff Zone and the Boulder Daily Camera. 5.5 the over-under. He thinks they're good for 6 to 8 wins. 8 seems pretty high end.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, you told me you'd take the over. Yeah, we talked about that in the break.
I think we said that on the air. And how about that? Shedeur Sanders better than Fafita, better than Cam Rising?
Best QB in the Big 12, he says. He's going to need a better offensive line if he's going to show that.
Well, they're going to have 5 new guys.
Yep.
Now, they got 4 transfers
and a freshman.
One.
Yeah, freshman tackle was the number 1 recruit in the country.
Yes, he was. How about that? Jordan Seaton, I think his name is. I wrote it down so I'd be prepared. Yes. He's a 5-star freshman. Another Ofa Moatau.
And there were 4 sacks in the spring game when usually there isn't a lot of blitzing and stuff. So the test will be coming for Colorado.
There were 0 sacks in the spring game. You don't sack the quarterback.
They call them sacks. They blow the play dead. Yeah.
So I would be a little hesitant. That's not a real.
Don't give Shedeur a chance to get away like he'll have in a game.
Yeah. I mean, you get within 5 feet of them, they blow the whistle. So I don't know how they had any sacks in the spring.
Colorado doesn't play BYU this year, but they will play Utah in November.
Well, yeah, but see they'll have a lot of sacks because the thing about those guys is that I'm not sure how much they want to win. They'll say it. Like you said, I asked you about RSL in the midweek game. Oh, they want to win. Well, yeah, are they going to say that? But show me what you do. And would he rather have a sack or an incomplete pass that goes against his percentages? Well, it was clear watching him play what the answer was.
Take the sack.
Yes. This is a stop
on the way to the National Football League.
Yeah. He'll be the highest pick with the fewest amount of wins ever.
Oh, who are the high picks who didn't win much? Elway at Stanford because he never played in a bowl game.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, most of those
were
guys
different then.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, they were good enough to record-wise to go to bowl games. They just didn't have 800 of them. Especially if you count that stupid play, which was illegal. Don't look it up.
I'm going to.
Don't look it up.
Too late.
My gosh, you are
because I thought they had a losing record with that. I thought if he'd gotten to 6-5, they were going to a bowl game, and that play kept them out.
Right. That's what I just said.
So 5-6 isn't very many wins.
Right, because of that play. That's what I just said.
But you said they had enough wins to go. They didn't have enough bowl games.
I'm talking about other years.
Okay.
Not every single year. And then he'll be quiet when he sees. The only way he's going to speak to it is if I'm wrong.
What year was the band out on the field?
I don't know.
Yeah, you do.
His last year.
Okay. 84?
John Elway?
Yeah.
I remember telling my brother-in-law when John Elway was a sophomore in high school, I want you to pay attention to this guy. And back then, there was no social media, none of that stuff. And you had to know by being in the area. And my roommate in college lived in the San Fernando Valley. And so I would visit him often. I was infatuated with Los Angeles, which is why I ended up moving there. I thought, I got to live here. And so I would visit him at the drop of a hat. You could fly over on Western Airlines for like $25.
Western Airlines.
Yeah.
Oh, old school right there.
Yeah. And so I was flying over all the time. And they would get the daily news, and I'd look at it, and they would have almost every day a story about John Elway. Because he was at Granada Hills High, which was the rival of my college roommate, was at Kennedy, and they were right there. In fact, I think when John Elway was the quarterback at Granada Hills, the quarterback at Kennedy was a guy named Tom Ramsey. Both of them played in the NFL.
I remember that name, Tom Ramsey.
Yeah, he went to UC Los Angeles. And so I'd heard about Elway when he was like 14 years old. Back when that was, now you know who these people are because they're all over the place all the time, right?
But it was different then.
Yeah, yeah. And then when Elway blows up, and my brother-in-law was, you told me. Because they would feature him, and he was a multi-sport star. And he did play professional baseball, which is what he used to leverage the Colts not drafting him.
Hey, I could go to the Yankees. I don't need this.
He was already playing for them. And he came in. Crenshaw had this phenomenal baseball team. And they had multiple guys, Dale Strawberry, Chris Browns, and a couple other guys that played in the big leagues. Back when, and this is not a knock, this is just a fact, when baseball was popular among African Americans, and it didn't cost an arm and a leg with all the travel stuff, because Strawberry ended up obviously was the number one pick. And so they played the final at Dodger Stadium. It was a big deal to get to the stadium. And they obviously, to play at Dodger Stadium when you're in high school, how fun that would be. And so they brought in this reliever to shut him down, and that reliever was John Elway.
Shedeur Sanders. Who'll want him? There was a quote in the spring. I read the story about their spring football game, and there was a quote. You're there for spring football, but it's so much about Dion and his kids. They actually asked him, are you disappointed that the Broncos drafted Bo Nix? Because now they probably wouldn't use a high pick on Shedeur the very next year. It's that much about the celebrity and the stardom and that little about Colorado football.
Does he want to go to the Broncos? He's not a Denver guy.
So he'd be local, and his dad would be right there at CU watching him play.
You think he's going to be coaching at CU?
I don't, but he's because they did go to that with him, and he's like, oh yeah, he wants to have a line of Dion snowmobiles, and he's a lifer here, and blah blah blah.
That'd be awesome if he was for them, and see if he can win. I don't think he's going to be able to win with this constant transfer stuff. I think the system is set up to allow it, but the system isn't set up to allow you to win. And this guy here is going to, he calls him Coach Prime and all that stuff. We see what's important to him and how he views things. But the system is not set up to win through the transfer portal heavily. It's there to augment your roster.
Fill in key gaps, but not rebuild the entire offensive line.
Yeah, and I mean, I wrote down the number of transfers on each side of the ball. I wrote down their depth chart last night.
Yep.
I mean, it's just dominant.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
33 guys left the program, including the entire O-line. One guy did run out of eligibility, but everybody else on the O-line transferred out.
Yeah.
That's a lot of turnover again.
And their running backs left. I mean, the only people who stayed, this McLean kid who was supposed to be all that as a 5-star DB, he left. Everybody and their dog is leaving. And I don't think you can win that way. I don't have high hopes for him. I would love to see it. He's a show in terms of the Hollywood aspect that he brings, but I just don't know that that's going to lead you to success on the ball field. I mean, you look at what's going on with Utah. I mean, come on, how have they had success? Because it's the same thing every year.
Can Colorado get to 6 wins? Can they get bowl eligible? That seems to be the bar now. They had 4 last year, and that league looks tougher than this league, so that ought to help them on the way to 6.
When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are on the way.